Tonight is a very special night. It's the last stop of our tour, and it's the last show for Genesis.
Your dad or a parent be on a stage with like millions of people saying their name, and you're like, no, that's just Dad. But I started to get used to like, that person was Phil, and then when we were at home, that was Dad.
When you've been married 3 times and you've got 5 kids, you don't live with them, and you've been divorced 3 times, you start to wonder whether it's you, you know? Can't always be someone else's fault.
The music world is in shock over the recent news about the legendary Phil Collins. For decades, the former Genesis frontman has captivated audiences with his incredible talent and unforgettable performances. His music has shaped generations, from his early days as a drummer to his rise as a solo star. However, Collins's health struggles have now taken a tragic turn, severely impacting his ability to perform. What are these challenges, and how serious are they? Join us in this special episode as we uncover the alarming developments surrounding Phil Collins, the neurological cycle. In recent years, Phil Collins has battled with different health issues, but this time around, he has to face the haughty grip of neurological problems. This ailment has indeed impacted his mobility and is a threat to the future of his musical career. Reports suggest that he is suffering from severe nerve damage and a type of dyspraxia. If these reports are true, the icon may have challenges doing everyday tasks, learning new skills, remembering information, and managing his emotions. Close sources say that these symptoms are visible already, and Phil is presently struggling with his coordination at this point. Are the curtains finally closing on his career, or will there be a bounce back? Well, Phil Collins' music career has been remarkable, but it has also been marked by significant health challenges that began in the late 1990s, and he has always found his way back to a healthy form. The legend once had to deal with a severe and constant back strain that was caused by spinal problems that needed surgery for treatment. Bending to the drum was wearing him, but he ignored his pains just to give riveting performances on stage, and it later took its toll on his back. Also in 2016, Collins revealed in a press conference that he could no longer drum the way he used to after a terrifying neck issue while performing. He explained that during the Genesis reunion tour, he had a drumming competition with Chester Thompson, and after the battle, things immediately went south that night because he just couldn't play the same way again. Despite trying different solutions, like using bigger drumsticks, he had remained away from his best performances. Collins announced that he could no longer play drums without experiencing intense pain in his neck region. As sad as it is to hear, after playing drums for 50 years, medical experts say that all these predicaments were bound to surface. Collins had to quit his usual drumming sequences because his vertebrae already compressed his spinal cord. Being totally in love with his art, Phil resorted to developing a new technique to drum so that he could remain relevant practically and not just in the hearts of his fans. He also reassured his fans that they shouldn't worry since he could perform without hurting himself. A year later, speaking to Rolling Stone magazine, Collins expressed contentment with the new format of Genesis. Collins stated that he was going to stop drumming and that he had stopped for the band but did not miss his days as an intense drummer. Following a second surgery in that same year, which improved his health, Collins was able to announce the Not Dead Yet global tour for the following year. But then, just as he came out of one loop, he fell into another in 2000 when he suddenly lost the hearing loss in his left ear. This ailment was caused by a viral infection, and despite seeking medical help, his prognosis was grim. Even though he eventually regained much of his hearing, this marked the beginning of ongoing health struggles. In 2007, during a Genesis reunion tour, Collins suffered from another severe spinal injury. This time, he had dislocated the vertebrae in his neck and damaged a nerve that affected his hands. Even after surgery, he was left unable to properly grip drumsticks or play the piano. After the incident, the icon slowly adapted and started focusing more on singing and producing. At 2010, he finally announced his retirement from music due to his health. However, in 2015, he came out of retirement, performing seated with a cane for mobility. Unfortunately, in 2017, he fell and had to get stitched while on a tour, and because of this, he was forced to cancel some shows, but still managed to give fans an experience to remember. Later that year, Collins shared that he had been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, developed an infected abscess on his foot, which required special treatment, and also suffered from acute pancreatitis. At that point, the pain was so great that in his last Domino tour with Genesis, he was seated throughout their performance. His son, Nick Collins, took over drumming duties. Nick was able to replicate his father's signature sound, and his performance was so impressive that Phil expressed how proud he was of the Australian program, The Project. According to Phil, his son did not get to play in the band because he was the boss's son, but because he was good enough. The final Genesis show at London's O2 Arena in March 2022 was a particularly significant moment. As Collins addressed the crowd, there was a sense of closure and reflection. The audience responded with a standing ovation, celebrating the legacy of Genesis in Collins's incredible career. Even after the show, fans have hoped that the legend gives a few acts in the future, but with present ailments, it's almost certain that this is the end, and one can only reminisce on how good he was. With the level of media attention Phil receives, but can't wonder what his career and achievements were. Genesis charismatic leader. Phil Thompson rose to stardom in drumming through the musical band Genesis. It was formed in 1967 by some schoolmates Peter Gabriel, Tony Banks, Mike Rutherford, and Anthony Phillips at Charterhouse School. Initially influenced by folk and pop, the band's early music was depicted as a distinctive progressive rock style. How Phil Collins joined Genesis was unique. In 1969, he landed a gig in a British rock band named Flaming Youth. They released an album tagged Arc 2 on Fontana Records. Everything seems to be going on well, but after a year of making no major progress, the band members went their separate ways. It was after this feat that Collins replied to an advertisement in a British music magazine, Melody Maker, which led to an audition for Genesis. The audition was held at the band leader's house, Peter Gabriel's, which had a swimming pool. Since Collins arrived early, the band suggested he take a swim while they attended to other drummers. When it was his turn, he nailed the audition and got the job immediately, replacing John Mayhew. Over the next 5 years, Collins established himself as one of the best drummers around. His joining the band yielded more success than they had ever had and pushed their songs across borders. However, in 1975, Peter Gabriel, the band's lead vocalist, left Genesis to pursue a solo career. This departure could have meant the end for other bands, but for Genesis, it was the beginning of their way to fame. First, they placed a job opening on an advertisement board, Melody Maker, to which they received about 400 applications. After a lengthy audition process, during which Collins sang backup for the other candidates, he was chosen as the band's lead vocalist for the album A Trick of the Tail. Collins' takeover as lead singer marked a key turning point for the band, as his first album became a critical and commercial success, reaching number 3 on the UK albums chart. The album featured standout tracks like Dance on a Volcano and Ripples, highlighting Collins' impressive vocal talent. During this period, Genesis thrived, and under Collins' leadership, the band shifted from progressive rock to a more mainstream pop rock sound, expanding its audience and achieving greater popularity. Genesis continued to build on this success with albums like Wind and Wuthering in 1976 and Then There Were Three in 1978. The latter album featured the hit single Follow You, Follow Me, which became their first United Kingdom Top 10 and United States Top 40 single. They were invited to the Knebworth 1978 festival, and they delivered an iconic concert. This feat showcases the band's successful entrance into the pop music scene. In 1980, Genesis released another hot song, Duke, which solidified their pop rock transition. The album included hits like Misunderstanding and Turn It On Again, both of which received necessary radio play and chat success. Thus, they went on a Duke tour. During this tour, they transformed from a respected band into an awe-inspiring live act. Night after night, their performances stunned audiences and viewers, cementing their reputation for thrilling concerts. In 1981, their music took a new direction with the release of the albums Abacab and No Reply at All. These songs captured the attention of both critics and fans, keeping the band in the limelight. But it was in 1986 that Genesis reached the peak of their success when their album Invisible Touch topped the charts and produced several hit singles that dominated the airwaves. Their 1987 tour for the album became legendary, particularly their show at Wembley Stadium, where they delivered a magnificent performance accompanied by elaborate stage productions. The concert projects them as one of the biggest bands of the 1980s. As the years rolled into the late 1980s and early 1990s, Genesis continued to release chart-topping albums and perform packed arena concerts. All these unforgettable performances confirmed Genesis as a global rock icon. Throughout this time, Phil Collins played a key role in the band's rise. He started as a drummer and eventually became the charismatic frontman, guiding the band through its growth and transformation. It was evident that his passion and creativity shaped the band into one of the most influential and loved bands in rock music, a legacy that endures to this day. By now, it's safe to say Phil is a force in the music industry with his bands. But what about his songs, albums, and achievements? The platinum career and achievements. In the early 1980s, admitting the high performances of Genesis, Phil Collins felt it was time to step into the spotlight on his own. In 1981, he took a bold step by releasing his debut solo album, Face Value. The haunting track In the Air Tonight caught the world's attention, and with that, Collins was on his way to becoming a solo superstar. As the year rolled on, Collins' game grew. His second album, Hello, I Must Be Going, continued his rise. When he was not working on his music, he was producing for legends like Philip Bailey of Earth, Wind and Fire, and Eric Clapton. His excellent skill for creating hit songs was undeniable, especially when his emotional ballad, Against All Odds, became a chart-topping movie theme song. By 1984, Collins was unstoppable as his third album, No Jacket Required, propelled him into the hallway of stardom. A worldwide tour followed, cementing his place as one of the biggest names in music. During this time, he helped in the Band-Aid charity single, Do They Know It's Christmas?, while his band was experiencing success with their best-selling album at that time. Then came 1985 and Live Aid, the historic dual-continent concert to raise funds for famine relief in Africa. Collins decided to take the challenge to play 2 concerts on the same day, one in London at Wembley Stadium, where he performed solo hits and shared the stage with Sirens, and the other concert in Philadelphia at JFK Stadium. After his set in London, Collins jumped in a Concorde flight and sped across the Atlantic to join Eric Clapton and reunite with Led Zeppelin for the American leg of the event. By the end of the day, he had achieved a great feat, performing on 2 of the world's biggest stages in one of history's most memorable musical events. Thus, his place as a musical icon was firmly established. In 2004, after a 6-year hiatus, Collins released Testify, an album that reflected him as a mature artist who has found his place in destiny in the world. Phil remains true to his sound creations, the ones that are genuine and creative. He once said that music can't be fake. If the musician is not true to himself, it will reflect in his songs to his fans. Even as his pop stardom soared, Collins still stayed rooted as a drummer. He was invited to be the house drummer for the Queen's Jubilee concert in 2003, sharing stages with Ozzy Osbourne. He summed up his experience in drumming as the place where he lives. Phil's influence didn't go unnoticed. In 2010, he received the prestigious Johnny Mercer Award from the Songwriters Hall of Fame, a fitting tribute to a career that spans decades and genres. Through it all, Phil Collins has been more than a musician. He's been a pioneer, storyteller, and a consistent presence in modern music. His journey through music is nothing short of fabulous. He crafted a song inventory that boasts 8 studio albums, selling an impressive 33.5 million certified units in the United States and an estimated 150 million records globally. These staggering figures place him among the world's best-selling artists. His success is so rare that he belongs to a select group of only 3 artists, along with Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson, to have sold over 100 million records, both as a solo artist and as a key member of a band. At the age of 69, the British rocker made his Celebrity 100 debut. He made $87.6 million in revenue in 2019, the final year of his Not Dead Yet Yours, surpassing Shawn Mendes and Jonas Brothers. Collins' talent also earned him numerous accolades. He has won 8 Grammy Awards, 6 Brit Awards with the title of Best British Male Artist 3 times, 2 Golden Globe Awards, and a Disney Legend Award. His songwriting strength has been recognized with 6 Ivor Novello Awards, including the prestigious International Achievement Award from the British Academy of Songwriters, Composers, and Authors. In 1999, Collins received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, cementing his status as a music icon. 4 years later, in 2003, he was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame, followed by his 2010 induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a member of Genesis. Not only has his voice and songs resonated with millions, but his drumming skills also received high praise, earning him a place in both the Modern Drummer Hall of Fame in 2012 and the Classic Drummer Hall of Fame in 2013. Collins' career is a testament to his extraordinary influence on music and culture. Phil's impact is sure to affect upcoming talents. Now let's take a detour into his personal life and relationships. Music-laced childhood. On a chilly January day in 1951, the legend was born into the arms of Greville Collins, an insurance agent, and his wife June, a talent manager. They named him Philip David Charles Collins, and little did they know, this boy would grow up to become one of the world's most iconic musicians. Raised in a home where creativity thrived, Phil was the youngest of 3 children. His sister danced on ice as a competitive skater, and his older brother Clive was always drawing cartoons, destined to become a renowned cartoonist himself. The house was filled with ambition, and Phil soon found his own. Phil Collins grew up in Hounslow, Middlesex, and developed a passion for music from a young age. Especially when he received a toy drum kit for Christmas at the age of 5, his love for drumming also grew from there. He practiced by playing along to music on the television and radio, and even entered a talent contest at Butlin's holiday camp at the age of 7. The Beatles and their drummer Ringo Starr were early influences on Collins, as were the London band Action, which introduced him to soul music. In his early teenage years, Collins received basic piano and music lessons and later studied drum rudiments with experienced tutors. Interestingly, he never learned to read or write musical notation and created his music system for playing music, which he later regretted. By the time he was 12, Phil had a proper set of drums and played them every chance he got. Music flowed through him naturally, but it wasn't the only art he loved. While still in school, he was involved in several musical groups, including forming his band with his future wife as backup singers. Collins' friendship with Jack Wilde, who later became famous for his role in the film, and Oliver also played a significant role in his early years. At 13, Phil's path took a turn toward acting when he landed a role in the London production of Oliver. With his parents' support, he left Chiswick Grammar School to enroll in the Barbara Speake Stage School, diving headfirst into the world of performance. He would later recall how the decision to leave school had been difficult but essential for his artistic growth. Phil's passion for music only deepened during this time, while he dabbled into acting, making small appearances in movies like A Hard Day's Night and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. From then on, he started performing with various bands, including the one that released a debut album but was later disbanded. Fast forward to 2012, and Phil stood proudly next to his brother Clive at Buckingham Palace, watching as he was awarded an MBE for his contribution to art. Reflecting on their childhood, Phil fondly remembered how they had shared a room with Clive, always drawing and making Christmas and birthday cards for the family. From those early days of drumming and shared rooms, his foundation for musical triumphs was laid. His childhood was certainly enriched in music knowledge, which set the stage for his career. However, what about his love life? The failed marriage scandal. Throughout his life, he had faced the ups and downs of 3 failed marriages. The story began with Andrea Bertorelli, whom he first met as a child in a drama class. Years later, in 1974, they crossed paths again, and by 1975, they were married. Together, they had 2 children, Jolie, whom he adopted, and Simon. But as his music career began to soar, the constant touring and time away took a toll on their relationship. By 1980, the strain had become too much, and they went their separate ways. In 1984, he found life again, this time with Jill Tableman. The couple welcomed a daughter, Lily Collins, who would later become a well-known actress. But their marriage also came with complications. A major one was his affair while on a musical tour with Genesis in 1992. He rekindled an old flame with Lavina Lang, a former classmate. The affair further distanced him from his wife, and by 1994, he publicly admitted that his affections for Jill had faded, and their divorce was finalized in 1996. The media was thrown into an uproar when it was revealed that he had ended things with a letter sent via fax. As part of the settlement, Jill received a hefty sum of 17 million euros. Then came Oriane Seavey, a translator he met during his 1994 tour. Their connection blossomed into a romance, and in 1999 they were married. They had 2 sons, Nicholas and Matthew, who would go on to pursue football in their youth. For a while, life seemed settled as the family lived in a home once owned by Jackie Stewart in Switzerland. But as time passed, things began to unravel. After the birth of their second child, Oriane suffered from postnatal depression, which only added to the strains on their relationship. In 2006, their marriage ended in divorce, marking another difficult chapter in his life. The settlement was a staggering 25 million euros, the largest ever for a British celebrity at the time. Afterward, he battled depression and naturally turned to alcohol. It was a period he described as some of the darkest moments of his life. He nearly drank himself to death, lost in front of the television for hours on end. In 2012, he gave up alcohol, determined to turn his life around. By 2015, he had moved to Miami Beach to be closer to his 2 youngest sons, and in 2016, he reconnected with Oriane. The 2 resumed living together, but their relationship wasn't smooth. When Oriane secretly married another man in 2020, it finally marked the end of their time together. He served her an eviction notice and sold their Miami home the following year for $39 million. His struggles deeply affected his music. The pain of his first marriage shaped much of his debut solo album, Face Value, especially the iconic track, In the Air Tonight. The theme of heartbreak continued throughout his career with songs like I Don't Care Anymore, which captured the anger and frustration of the second divorce. However, his ability to channel his emotional turmoil into his music made him one of the most relatable and enduring musicians of his time. Collins has been producing music for decades, but decides it's time for retirement. What causes this decision? Unhealthy retirement. In March 2011, Phil Collins decided to retire from music. For years, he has been battling a series of health issues, the most significant being a spinal condition that robbed him of the ability to play the drums. As he reflected on his place in the music world, Collins concluded that it no longer felt like where he belonged. Instead, he turned his focus to a personal role, helping his third wife, Oriane, raise their young sons. The years that followed proved to be challenging. In 2017, Collins had a serious accident that needed stitches for a cut near his eyes after he struck his head on a chair while napping in his hotel room. This wasn't the first time his health had caused issues. In 2016, after surgery, he developed foot drop, a condition that makes it difficult to lift the front part of the foot, causing it to drag while walking. Foot drop isn't a disease, but a sign of a neurological, muscular, or anatomical problem. A fall in a hotel bathroom later worsened his condition, leading to the cancellation of 2 shows. Now Collins performs seated, wearing orthopedic shoes and using a cane for support. His once energetic stage presence had slowed, signaling a well-deserved retirement. By 2022, during his final performance, his son Nicholas, who has been by his side on the stage, told a media channel, Rolling Stone, that he believed his father's show in London might have been the last. Yet there was a hint of uncertainty, as Nicholas recalled how his father had declared his retirement once before, in 2004, only to surprise everyone by embarking on a tour in 2018. Phil Collins, however, made things clearer with a post on his website in an announcement titled Breaking News. The multiple Grammy winner explained his reasons for stepping away. He clarified that he was not retreating because of bad reviews, critics, or feeling unloved, but he took the decision based on his personal choice. Collins wanted to dedicate himself fully to being a father to his young sons. With over several million albums sold as a solo artist, his career achievements were magnificent, but now his heart is set on a new direction in life. Band members and fans know Phil Collins as a fantastic singer and drummer, but who is he to his children? His iconic films. Phil Collins' career was far from being one-dimensional as he ventured into the world of filmmaking. His debut in this arena was nothing short of spectacular. Disney's Tarzan brought him an Oscar for the track You'll Be in My Heart, proving that his talents extended well beyond pop music. From there, he continued to score films and even explored the idea of bringing Tarzan to the stage in a Broadway-style musical. He acted in several other leading roles, such as Julie Walters in the movie Buster in 1988, the main character as the arch-villain in Frauds in 1992, a cameo in Spielberg's Hook in 1992, and the Greek owner of a chain of gay bathhouses in And the Band Played on the same year. Also, Phil the Soave made an appearance in a Miami Vice episode in 1985, and 4 years later, he played Uncle Ernie in the Who's rock opera Tommy. In 2001, the British comedy series Brass Eye aired on Channel 4 and pulled a fast one on several celebrities, including Phil Collins. In a specific controversial episode, Collins was duped into endorsing a fake anti-pedophile campaign. He wore a t-shirt embellished with nonsense and warned children against talking to strangers. However, BBC reported that Collins sought legal advice about the episode, which was initially pulled from broadcast but was later rescheduled. Collins, who believed he was participating in a genuine public service initiative, expressed this displeasure, criticizing the show's serious taste problems and warning that such a prank would make celebrities avoid supporting charitable causes in the future. Much later, Collins made a brief appearance in the Finnish animated sitcom Pasila in an episode titled Phil Collins' Hangover, which featured a pastiche of his song Another Day in Paradise. Celebrities are prone to lawsuits. Either they are sued or they sue another. Let's see lawsuits surrounding Phil Collins. Lawsuits family saga. On a night in March 2022, Phil Collins performed at U Arena in Nanterre, France, and the crowd received him well, which shows his legacy still shines bright despite the challenges he's facing in his personal life. One such storm seemed to finally come to an end that Friday as a Miami judge dismissed a $20 million claim against Collins. The suit had been filed by his ex-wife, Oriane Sevi, who had been a major part of his life. Sevi, a 48-year-old Swiss-American, has sought half of the proceeds from the sale of the mansion they once shared, which was sold in January 2002. She claimed that Collins had promised her a share if she moved back in with him. In a new court filing, Oriane claimed that Collins has stopped showering and brushing his teeth, became addicted to antidepressants, and has become emotionally and verbally abusive for nearly a year. In her words, she said, Philip's stench became so pervasive that he became a hermit, refusing to interact personally with anyone. So as a result, she had no choice but to distance herself from him. She also added that Collins became incapable of having physical intimacy and refused to provide emotional support, love, or care for their shared children. In a response submitted to the court, Collins' attorney denied the claims, describing them as unrelated to the case, as the defendant aims to damage Phil Collins' image. Collins also replied via them that Oriane's claim is a means for her to extort money from him. However, Judge Alan Fire, who was tired of the drawn-out legal battle rules against Collins, stated that he was tired and he's done with the lawsuit. The judge also mentioned that the slanderous remake of the rock star would not be taken into consideration concerning the case. The case was dismissed after Sevi was found to have violated court orders multiple times. Collins equally filed a lawsuit against Sevi in October 2020, claiming that she refused to leave their Miami property. At the time, he described it as an armed occupation and takeover. Subsequently, there were tidings that Sevi had listed several of Collins' belongings up for auction, including a gold record by Robert Plant, the principal of Moments. In 1983, which Collins has contributed drums to on several songs. With the legal chaos over, Collins could now focus on his music and family. What did you think of Phil Collins? Let us know in the comments section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more exciting content.